everyone. This is Ayman Tarabishi, ICSB Executive Director and Deputy Chair of the Department of Management at the George Washington University. If you hear birds chirping in the background, it is because I have my window open and it's a beautiful day in Washington. And this is going to be a beautiful webinar. Let me start with that then, because it's just the birds are chirping. That means it's nice. It's a great day. It will be a fantastic day here. I am delighted. I'm delighted to introduce the session for today. And the session has a family feel to it here. And it's actually, the title is Family Business Sustainability in Rough Times with Dr. Roger Matama. And we are honored and privileged to have Dr. Roger Matama joining us. He is currently—
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. He is currently a senior lecturer at Makerere University Business School, or MUBS, and the head of the Department of Logistics Management as well. He holds a Ph.D. in finance, focusing on family business from the University of Dar Salaam in Tanzania. He also holds a master's in business administration finance from Makerere University. Dr. Matama, your smile is brightening up the room like the birds with the noise here.
Thank you, thank you.
I love your logo. I love the picture.
You.
So
Thank you.
We're a big fan here. So tell us what's going on, and tell us what's going on. Tell us what's happening, and please share your knowledge with us.
Thank you. So I should start my presentation now?
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you. I should minimize then I move on. First of all, I would like to tell you that the world over, there is a lot that is being discussed about family business, but there is always a tendency of not understanding what family businesses are. And this is connected to the way in which we define them. And I always conclude that they do not know what a family business is. And there's always a misconception. And family businesses themselves are very complex, very, very complex. Actually, I come in straight to say that family businesses are not necessarily blood relations. Because if you see a father and mother, they're not blood related, but they have their children. Now, that's normally where we normally get it wrong. And this is where I would like to first put into the mind of the people who are listening that normally we do not understand. We have not understood closely what a family business is. But I would like also to indicate to you that I have a very big passion on family business. Why? Why do I have this? Family businesses have been very, very strong in supporting economies, their GDPs, and I thought that during the rough times that are present now, some of these entities might collapse. And therefore I said, we have to do something. And in that case, I was very happy that the team from ICSB was very quick. I do recognize the team for what they did. Actually, it's over the weekend that they finalized everything, but we had discussed 2 weeks before. But I also know that they have been too busy. And I would like all the listeners to take serious ICSB. They are doing great work. I also would like to straight away move into what I've just been talking about. There are new realities. The new realities, when I talk of new realities, I remember when I was doing my MBA, we reviewed a book which was about new organizational realities. It is over this weekend that I had to add new business realities and added COVID. Why? Because new realities are including issues of layoffs, and not 1 or 2 or 3 people leaving jobs, but many people. But remember, these many people who are leaving have connections. They have fathers, they have children, they have relations, they have even friends. And this is not happening only in small entities, but even in big entities. People are laying off. Then others actually are even outsourcing. Here in Uganda, I can see deliveries of food stuff. The restaurants and the motels and what, they are no longer doing the sitting in and eating. They're just using vehicles, actually motorcycles to deliver. So what does this mean? It means there are new issues that are cropping up. But remember one thing, the family businesses have been very good in innovations. When you look at world over, look at Samsung, look at Toyota by Toyota, look at Walmart, look at many other products, look at nearly everything that we are using in this world. You find it has an incubation right from the family. And as I told you, the GDPs are already been affected, and I will show you something very interesting here. Just look at this. This is in 2016 in March. 2016, look at America, look at Europe, Middle East, look at even Asian Pacific. Look at the contributions in taxes at the time of inheritance, issues related to contributions when they are transiting from one generation to another per year. These are in millions. When you go to Africa, you see that in Africa itself in this year, the taxes were over 3 million euros. What does this mean? It means that these family businesses are very, very strong towards the economy. Let me go to Africa, just briefly looking at East Africa and some other countries in Africa. Of course, Uganda, if you look at it, our GDPs are not as big. But let me look at Kenya, one of our neighboring countries. You find that the GDP in this percentage form, you find the composition here, even the family businesses have contributed much, much more. Now, go to other countries. The contribution is significant. Look at Rwanda. Nearly half of the GDP is from family businesses. What does this mean to us? Family business sustainability is a must. We need it. We need it. We don't have to keep quiet when rough times are on. Now, synchronizing business operations and strategic orientations is what I think sustainability means. To synchronize, to put things together. Then, after that synchronization, then propel beyond one's life or one generation. Now, this propelling or movement should be both in good times and in bad times. Now, rough is connected to the bad times. Now, we need also to understand that even in good times, family businesses sustainability and succession is always a problem. It is problematic. And these are the reasons why it is problematic. You know, as I started, I said that family businesses are very complex. And I'm saying so because of these reasons. There is sibling rivalry. And you cannot avoid it. When I see my boys needing space because I'm denying them, I get to know that the sibling rivalry is not very far. It's not in the books, but I'm living with it. Favoritism and spouse disagreements. These are two different brains, or three different brains, or four different brains. I'm referring to even the Muslim family. And you find that they have what they prefer. Then we in Uganda, we see a number of organizations saying XY and sons, XY and sons. At one point in 2006, 2005, when I wrote my first book on family business, I questioned this. Then what of daughters? And people are even saying no. And if you remember very well, these are connected to patriarchism and matriarchism. Africa largely is a patriarch society. And that's why you'll see the sons are more preferred. And that's why you'll see Musoke and sons, Sebagara and sons. And then you also understand that even the behavior of an organization is in that regard. Then this one, I brought it in highlight intentionally, stakeholders. A number of stakeholders do not understand the dynamics of a family business. I will talk about the people who collect taxes, the people who give loans. Someone will question, how can your son be the accountant? How can your son be the one in charge of the other strategic operation? But it's the nature of a family business. A family business is supposed to be in that form. Then with these days, we have the children disinterest in family business. because of the nature in which the children are being brought out. I will be hinting more about this as we move on. Now, a study was done in 2016 by the National Bureau of Economic Research, and this was cited by PwC. It has been noted that 43% of the family farms do not have succession plans in place, and only 12% make it to the third generation. Now, going back to most African nations, you discover that most of the family businesses are within the first generation. Some are in the second generation, but few, very, very few have taken in beyond the second generation. Today, I was very happy. One of the granddaughters of one prominent business operator, James Murwana, who passed on about so many, not many years ago, but passed on. And this granddaughter was so solid. And if you notice, the Murwana group of companies is doing very well, very strong. And to me, that's already a success from Uganda, to find that the second generation is running and even the third generation is prepared to handle everything well. Now, generally, it's not a problem if this work was not studied in Uganda. This was in other countries which are developed, particularly in the US. And you see that they're also saying there's a problem, third generation. But also remember, we have the Congo gummies, which have been there for so many years. Congo Gumi actually is one of the oldest family businesses based in Japan. So transition has always been a problem. Remember, even in the good times. So my hinting is on the current times, tough times. What are tough times? Actually, I was happy with the ICSB team. Instead of calling it tough times, for them, they prefer to put on my badge, rough times, which is the same. I was discussing it with my father yesterday, and he was saying they are the same. And actually, the other one sounds heavier. So, harsh situations, circumstances, contexts are changing, and they're rough, they're very hard. Then the New World Order. The New World Order, what does this mean? The new things are taking place. The economic disequilibrium. Now, it's actually, the current times are showing us that we need to go back to our textbooks of economics and understand that resources are no longer scarce, but they are scarcer. Checking our basic economics, scarce or no customers. Actually, my brother yesterday, as we were sharing, he told me that the customers, the few who will be there, are checking for the best at the best price. And he was sharing with me that if you are not ready to adjust and move very fast, then you are likely to move on badly. Then we also have something called poor or limited logistics. And I'm not saying no logistics, but limited, because now everything is under surveillance, because safety issues are a must. Everything must be controlled. Security must be controlled. There are people who are now doing work, but you have to monitor, because there is normally a negligence in normal people. And this one is under what we call the cognitive laziness. Normally, every average human being has that cognitive laziness, and that's it. We'll just check that one in the sense-making theory. That is one of the assumptions, that every human being has that cognitive laziness. And therefore, these negligent logistic approaches are going to be checked, and that means a cost for the few organizations that will be there. What is the dilemma of family entities? And when I'm talking of this dilemma, I know that I'm talking to the audience that is diverse. I know some are from developed countries, some are from developing countries, some are from emerging economies. Now, the dependency, I have a friend, actually, one of our professors, Professor Woso Barunywa, indicated that if you are not in Africa or in a developing economy, then you will not understand what dependency is. And he actually told us that if you are within our settings, then you will appreciate that in one way or another, in your living room, there is a bedroom. And that bedroom is for one additional person who was not planned for, but is seated there, sleeping there, because he doesn't have some support from another source. So this is not only limited to the young ones, even the old ones. And they are coming in, and you'll not say, sometimes you'll not say, go away. Now that's one dilemma. Then the fear to say no, because of the complexity of a family business. Capacity to say no, you can't say no because you are so scared. How will I say no, and what will the society say? And now I am saying we need to now be prepared for that no. The familyness characteristics I've just told you about, the rivalry, the favoritism. But now, what are the solutions? Can we alert members that rough roads are there? And therefore, if the rough road is there, then can we also alert the members in the family that we need hands-on our seats because of the rough roads? And this is actually one thing which is very nice that ICSB has done, to alert everyone. Take precaution on costs. Let's not take for granted the costs. Let's understand the resources are very, very important, but also understand that even medication is becoming a problem, life. So can we try to take time on our own lives and therefore maximize, schedule our times very well? And can we also know that the assets are going to be very expensive, because if factories are not producing, then the few assets that we own are likely to be very expensive. Sense of urgency. Can we have this sense of urgency, like I've seen with the number of teams, and recently I've just discovered that Tammy and Sky and Ayan, you are so sorted. No wonder your names are very unique. This is a team from ICSB. The way they have been organizing, this is very nice. Now, the multifrontal capabilities. Can we handle many tasks seamlessly? Can we multitask? This is actually my sister told me, multitasking. Can we multitask? Can we multitask? Can we move on in several things, but do not show that the others that you are suffering? Then my major problem, even before COVID, was the rate at which the instant gratification was taking place. This one is fed by my research in my PhD. When you're doing a PhD, there are many things you learn on. I discovered that Bell in 1970 actually predicted that the postmodernism can cause a problem. And if you noticed, until these recent times when the roughness has started, we seem to be very fast in whatever we're doing, everything very fast. Someone is talking, you're already giving an answer. Now, delayed gratification, which is one of the key things that is connected to most of the successful entrepreneurs, the founders of businesses, something that is an intersection in whatever they do, was missing. Now, as this is still there, we find the COVID now setting in. And this COVID, some people have said that it's actually awakened us to not take things for granted. So the landscape has become a little bit different. And so the instantification, people are now questioning that. And from there, this is where now we move on. If you look closely about this study by OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, it's very, very important. What they have done, they have seen that we are likely to take 2 years to come back to the situation where we were as 2019 was ending. Now, what does this mean? Maybe I should throw more light, because you are business-oriented people. Let me throw more light about this. Now, the stock markets, the value of the stocks, the shares, in most of these houses, these markets, you see that they are below zero. They're actually negatives. What does this mean? What is the interpretation? Now, globally, the African countries, the European countries, they have been working together. Some of these who had the disposable incomes would afford to go for vacation, for a tour somewhere in another country. What does this mean? It means some of them might think twice as they go for such vacations. And therefore, such businesses which were in such vacational business, in tourism, in hospitality, even in any other, even in aviation, we have to be very careful and see how to handle that. And PricewaterhouseCoopers did something very nice. I actually landed in it as I was preparing for this work. And it's a recent document. They have come up with some solutions. And they are saying that it is in acronym ADAPT. And I will be highlighting some of the issues which are very, very significant. Asymmetry. If you remember your studies very well, information asymmetry means something there is there, someone has information, another one does not. So now there's some asymmetry whereby things are not going to be the same again. The crisis will hit poor people, poor regions, and poor countries hardest. Unemployment at the bottom of the wealth pyramid, at the lower level. Then small businesses are likely to fail on a massive scale. And here I come in. My family businesses are not likely to fail in this way. I know why, and I will be explaining to you why. Then disruption. There is total disruption. This one, everyone has agreed. And we actually see that technology is most of the time. I never used Zoom until maybe 2 weeks ago, when we had to do most of the things virtually distant from each other because of one of the requirements of the corona times. Age, we are seeing that developing markets will struggle to stimulate job creation. Now, job creation, remember, some of the developing economies have a lot who are unemployed. So what does this mean? Pressure on pensions and social welfare. You know, some people I have been hearing in our newspapers, some people have been teaching and private schools, they are asking for government to support them because the investors do not have the money to do that. Few opportunities will be available for young workers. Now this tagged with this one is even a bigger problem. Then polarization. Now this polarization, I'll just take you through very fast, because if you noticed, there is a lot of jealous protection for individuals within a certain country. The borders are now being strengthened such that the outsiders do not come in, the insiders, to cause more problems. And in that case, they are trying to say, yes, we have to be very careful. And if you noticed now, things are now being localized by particular setting. Then distrust in institutions. Some institutions and leaders will come out of the crisis with stronger reputations. So now there must be some solidness in whatever we're doing and how we're doing it. Why do I feel they are going to be adapting faster? Families have very unique ties. They are cohesive in nature. They are so useful in one another. Then they do a lot of sacrifices on finances. They actually, if I may use the pecking order theory, they peck more on their internal resources, much more than any other type of business. They use what we call social capital. They use their friends. They use their children to do the labor. It's very, very important that we know that even the family businesses have the concern for the community. They are very, very keen on the community. How will the community think? And that's why I say that because of that, together with the longevity drive, they are ready to move on the standard operating procedures, the SOPs. These SOPs, already the family businesses are already doing them even when the governments have not asked. And so they are ready to even abide by the given regulations on safety and health. Sustaining in hard times. We need to know that I know most of the people listening, you've been driving, or at one point you were driven. Now, I like the fact that when you're driving, if you want to concentrate on the driving mirror, now the driving mirror, the other people on the driving mirror and the side mirrors, then you're likely to have problems. because the steering wheel is likely to follow where you are facing. Now, if you can focus on the windscreen and see, what do I do? And in the event that you see something coming on your side, that's where I expect that defensiveness should come in. And in that case, as we do our organizations, as we move on very well, we need to appreciate that things might change, but how do we change? How do we become defensive without causing any problem? And here I'm saying, utilize the founder mentality. You think like a founder. Don't think like a second or third generation. Think the way he started, or the way she started. Then care. Take care of yourself. Don't just, when we're traveling in the airlines, you always hear, first get the oxygen mask, first put it on yourself. Don't start with another person, even if it's your wife, even if it's your child. So start with yourself. Exercise, do a lot of exercises. Sleep enough. Sleep enough, it's very, very important. And eat well. But communicate effectively. It's very, very important to communicate effectively. And this is where we normally go wrong. Let's just see this topmost billionaire in Africa. What did he say? He said, my grandfather once told me, the soul of business is not making money, but making people happy. How many of us are communicating effectively? How many of us are demanding for reports, demanding for work, without knowing that the person who's giving it is a person, is a human being? Some of us have forgotten, and we think that human beings are machines. And that's where you can imagine this man, no wonder he's very rich. It's the grandfather who told him. The third generation advised him. No wonder he's very rich in Africa. It's one of the topmost. Actually, it's for you to just communicate, but are you studying the mood? Study the mood. It's very important. Uplift others first. Don't just rush. Now, use the ICT media platforms like Zoom, Google for regular interactions. Endeavor to cushion the message. Most of us go wrong. We always start with, let me show you what we normally start with. We want something to be done, we start with this section, the facts and figures. I haven't received 2 reports. I haven't received XY from there. Can you start with, hi, where have you been? How are things, man? What is this? Then move to the facts and figures. Then as you conclude, I hope it will be ready by the other time. Now, it's important, and I recently designed this when I was teaching my students. So after going to German, when I got to know that the Professor Franklin was most of the time talking of the human touch. Professor Franklin was very, very keen in human touch, that the world is moving to human touch in everything. Then I call this a message anatomy. Now, this is very, I know the team from ICSB and the others already know this powerful man, Bill Gates. And it's very interesting what he talks about, how he started and where he is. Let's read carefully. There is no secret. I simply showed my plan to 1,200 people. 900 said no, 300 signed up. 85 actually did something, but only 35 were serious. And out of those 33, 11 made me a multi-millionaire. Now, can you see something? Do we know our team? Do we understand them? Oh, we don't. As I am concluding, team, it's very important for us to understand the team. And it's also good to understand that teamwork involves tension. And that's why I'm saying that understand your workers. You could be having the worker who is a family member or their family members. Well, it's not taken for granted. He could be a family member, but he's not thinking like a family member. So we also have a worker who is a non-family member, not a family member, but with an orientation of a family, with cohesiveness of a family. Then we have those workers who are purely outsiders. So under which category should you give the secrets? Under which category should you make sure that you have your strategies designed? You have to understand your workers. Even as you lay off, even as you think of people leaving, please be careful with the people you are working with. Conclusion: in tough times, it is not the winner's mentality that will count. It is the ability to sustain that shows who is a good leader. And this one, I coined it recently in May. I said, each of us has a unique story to tell. The question is, who is willing to listen? And that's where I conclude by just allowing you to remain very good. And I thank you so much for listening to me. I know many people from India, from anywhere, they are listening to me. And it's now your time now to become the presenters, and I will be listening. So you will give me all the questions that you want, and I try. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. What a great, inspiring presentation here. Let's get to the questions here, because this is the root of it here. You know, they say blood is thicker than water, and they say this, and yet we understand that there's going to be a huge transition happening from first generation, second generation, third generation family businesses, and most of the wealth will be lost as the succession happens for many reasons. You know, not interested in the business, not interested in pursuing what your father or mother or grandfather or grandmother did here. But we see this play out aggressively in Western societies or in the United States, but yet culture matters. You know, cultures have different ways of handling the transitions. In the United States, there is taxes on succession or estate taxes, but in different countries, there's no such thing as estate taxes here. Explain to us a little bit the cultural aspect of succession in your country and maybe in Africa, if you may. I know it's different in different parts of Africa. Africa is not just one country, it's many countries here. But what's your reaction to this?
I hope my mic is on. Good.
Yes, it is. We hear you very clearly.
Good. Yep. Very good. Culturally, now Africa, like any other country, especially if a country has ever been, most countries which have ever been colonized, they have those mixed or blended cultural outputs. Now, initially, I'll just go to my country. One of the areas that is largely African are the Karamojong communities. If you looked at them closely, the Karamojong community, which is in the northeastern part of our country, Uganda, which is similar to the other people, the Maasais, who are within Kenya and Tanzania, and some other pockets of Africa, you'll discover that their familyness was so solid and so organized, in the sense that transitions and successions were very properly sorted. Now, there comes in colonialism, and with colonialism, there were many issues that brought up and very unique cultural settings that came up, and therefore new things were brought out. So getting pure cultural principles that are within a specific country will be tricky. And now going back, if you remember the book of Hofstede on culture, where he talked of power distance and all that. So now, and masculinism. Now, you'll also appreciate the fact that whoever colonized you will also bring those power distance elements, and you will enjoy them and imbibe them. And as you do that, it will spill over to the businesses that you run, including belief in ladies, belief in men, and all that. That's my take on that. Thank
you. There's a question coming here, and the question comes here. I'm trying to reconcile the slide on stock markets with family businesses, especially taken from the perspective of Africa. Can you kindly elaborate on this?
Okay. Thank you so much about that. Well, our stock markets in Africa, in most cases, unlike South Africa and Kenya and a few other countries, have not yet fully developed. And I am sure that's why in the African perspective, we have not understood deeply about the stock markets. However, let's look at the final consumer who is based in Europe and America, or in Russia or any other place in Europe. This customer is using dividends and you know that dividends are the profits that have been apportioned to the shares that you have, is using these dividends as a disposable additional income in his pocket, and is using to invest in Africa or to buy and supply things or support Africans. So now that explains how generally even the African market will be affected. Now, going back to the stock markets, I know that sometimes most people don't believe in them, but it's very important for us to interpret the trends to understand, because one person one time told me that money fears noise, and money is like flu. It just, as long as there is any danger, money will disappear. So now, that's a signal to us that whoever has been our customer who is from out there, as long as the dividends have gone low, then we are likely to have this customer think many questions to be answered before he does what he was doing before. This also goes to the donations, by the way, because we have organizations that invest in stock markets, and therefore out of the extra monies they can give donations. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask you this question here. Based on research on family business, what we know on family businesses is that when times are good, family businesses save money, right? They don't spend, they save money. It's just their nature of perseverance and resilience. And that's why they last, because they know there's succession, there's generations that they have to take care of. So they don't spend gregariously. They don't spend too much. They try to be very what do you call it, shrewd with the money. They're rational with the money. And research has shown in tough times, the companies that survive and do better than other companies are family business. It's the resilience aspect of it. Because why? They saved. It's like a squirrel saving. It's not just before winter, and then when the winter is bad, they're ready to go. Is this the case now with COVID-19 in Uganda? Do you see family businesses surviving better or doing better than non-family businesses? What's your reaction to this?
Actually, I am very happy that you brought it. It's like you've just been reading about familyness. I'm so happy that you brought it clearly the way it is. The ideal situation is that, but that is common within the Asian markets. I did research on frugal behavior and its effect on financing in Uganda. And there I actually appreciate what I got from the University of Salaam with their guidance. I discovered that some of the people running these businesses, the small businesses, have not appreciated the fact of delayed gratification. And therefore, unlike the other countries that I've mentioned, the Asian economies, if they are not helped at this moment, then there will be a problem. However, I have a few of the organizations in Uganda, and I'm very happy to talk about them. Organizations like Aponye Logistics, organizations like Mukwano, the Murwana Group, which I've just mentioned, the Makerere from Tanzania. You can see that they are thriving. An organization like Mandela Group, which is actually owning Cafe Javas. You see, if it's a family business by a man called Mandela. If you see the way they are running, they are very fast, very, very fast in how they are doing their things. So I know few of them have tried, especially the ones where the founders are still alive. Now, the ones where the founders are not there, they are now basing on what the founder trained. But largely, if they are scattered, if there is that rivalry and they have not understood the cohesiveness and the survivability, your talk, what you've just said, very few people understand this. And that's why I was saying that stakeholders, most of them have not understood family businesses to that level. That's what I would like to comment about.
Okay, so you raised the issue of Asia here. And so now I'm going to ask a different question based on a question from Moses that came in, right?
Yes.
And we'll take the example of South Korea, the Shibals.
Okay.
The Shibals, historically, what has happened when Korea South Korea was going through the reconstruction, the government back then in the 1940s or 30s decided to select 6 or 7 families, okay? And they told those families, you run our industries. You take our industries and run it with a family business and a government partnership. That's why we have the Hyundais. That's why we have the Samsung. That's why we have the GE. These are all Shibals, which is basically family-run huge conglomerates that have gained the support of governments. And now they run, but there's a dark side to this. In different countries now they're saying family businesses are too much with the government. There's too much collaboration. There's too much, something is going on. It doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. There's, and you can see what happened in South Korea as an example, where there was money given to the presidency or not, and became a big crisis, right? A scandal. The question is the following. Is it healthy or not healthy to have big family businesses in countries and governments working together? Because there's two sides of it. One is stability, one is long-term vision, but then the other one is there shouldn't be this relationship. It shouldn't be this way. It's a tough question. It's a delicate question. It's a political question here. But let's answer it from a research perspective here, right? Not answer it from a political perspective, but from a research perspective here. What do you think is ideal for partnerships between government, family businesses, and the private sector?
Thank you so much, Ayman. That's very good. Huh? You brought this, and I'm happy that you brought out those examples of families that were supported. And I for one know that the family of Murwana, at the time when the Murwana was being buried, the president indicated that Murwana, James Murwana, the late James Murwana, was very fundamental in rebuilding the economy of Uganda. You can imagine the president had to come by a helicopter to bury one of the ordinary citizens. But in this case, he wasn't ordinary. He was a very special gentleman because he was helping in building the Uganda Manufacturers Association. He was fundamental in rebuilding, actually starting the private sector foundation of Uganda. And going back now beyond Uganda, if you read very well about Keiretsu in Japan, you will notice that if a board member is very good, and to me, I actually think James Murwana was doing that because by the time he died, he was sitting on several boards, many boards, and he was very constructive. And I used to see him in the church. He would be there in the 7:30 a.m. time in the morning, but doing many things at the same time. No wonder the business is doing very well. But let's go back to Keiretsu. Keiretsu is mainly within the Japanese, and it's mainly at board level. And recently I gave it to my students. They're actually trying to digest this deeply. Keiretsu with a nice, for instance, I have a certain gentleman or a certain woman who is very good, who is so strategic, who is helpful. If I need him and I need his resources, I am not bothered like him sitting on several boards. And now, if we go back now to Europe and America, they will question this. And this is a contradiction. No, this is conflict of interest and all this. Yes, I agree, you actually brought it. We shouldn't look at it politically, but we should look at the cowardice. Sometimes we move into the mind of a person. What is he doing? How is he doing? And so this issue of, and by the way, as I said, that money fears noise. As long as you've become a billionaire, by one way or another, you have no choice but the government to be partnering with you. Why? Because government will pick interest in you. You are paying a lot of taxes. Fine, we should be our friend and we should work together. That's how, because all we're talking about is the GDP. Remember the taxes, we need those taxes to offer the security, to offer the roads, to repair the water pipes and all that. That's my take on that, Ayman.
Good. So I'm going to ask you now a difficult question here. I'm ready for that one. I've been preparing for that one here. What about the role of women in family businesses? Again, historically, research-wise, and we know this very clearly that the founder, typically a male, would like to give it for their firstborn son. Maybe the second son Usually, rarely, they would even consider the woman, because the women should get married and stay at home. That's the traditional sense. That was the traditional way of looking at it here. But clearly, this is wrong. This is absolutely not acceptable. And women have shown great leadership capabilities, management skills, and they have deservingly equal rights as a man to lead the family business. What's your take on that?
I'm happy. I'm very happy with this. And this debate was there in the 90s, in the mid 2000s. And I would like to tell you this. By the time I wrote my book, I hinted about this. And if you noticed in 2005, 6, there was a massive drive on board membership. And it was discovered, research indicated that women are very good at multitasking. And well, the issue has been on if a person is married, what happens? And I always question these people. Now, if why do you look at marriage only in the angle of a woman? Why should you look at it also from the angle of a man? Because the moment a man marries, automatically starting his own business or his family. So, answering you, in our context, we have seen women in our country doing great. We've seen them doing very, very many things. I will give you an example. We have a powerful company called Intake Group. Intake is owned by one of the Ugandan indigenous person called Gastarule. Most of the sensitive positions are being run by the daughters, and is comfortable with this. And the things are running very well. He's competing favorably. And you'll be surprised. Now, the other companies, for instance, another one which I just mentioned, Aponye Group, which is one of the entities that has gotten a tender to help in the logistics of foods within our country. Now, that one, the one who is at one point, he actually connected with me and was very, very keen in family business, trained in Canada, operating in Uganda, thoroughly working as a daughter with strategic thinking. I told you about Murwana Group. The person who is in charge of everything is a woman, is a daughter. Barbara is in charge of nearly everything, besides even doing other tasks. Now, the debate on whether man or woman, that one, for the people, of course, who have been exposed, the debate is now gone. Unfortunately, the people are not informed. They still are driving within that element of and sons. I've seen it in our country. Many people are still using and sons. Even if they don't mention it, they still, when there is a meeting, it's only the sons who will be on strategic issues. The women will be somewhere else, then they will be consulted later when things have backfired.
I agree with you. I know. I agree with you. I think this debate should end once and for all, because it's a mute point now. You know, and I'm glad that you're very emphatic and you're very passionate about this point. Thank you. So let me now ask a question where I'm smiling a little bit. So we talked about women, right? But I'm going to switch the topic a little bit here and talk about the young people, the youth.
Okay.
Oh, there's so much trouble. They have passion, they have creativity. You know, I say this, I'm 49 years old, so I consider myself now old school. I am no longer young, okay? And I say that, but I'm a champion of the youth. But you know, Dr. Matama, the youth, we were there. We were the rebels. We were the change makers. We were the ones that, you know, kind of resisted all the systems and way of thinking, and we said, let's change the world. Now we're in a position, we're not that. This is a new generation coming in. But there's differences. There's differences in how they see the world and how we see the world. But in particular, my question is, how do they see family businesses? The way we see family businesses is different. And I personally, my father comes from a family business. I come from a family business. So I have the traditional view of a family business. Your father and my mother and my father started the business. But there's that issue of, you know, respect the old system, the old way, the traditional approach. I don't know if it's for young people. What's your take on this? What's your opinion on this?
Now, I'll talk as a consultant and talk about as a researcher. as a consultant, I've faced many people and I've told them this. If you don't expect a child to enjoy the dynamics of a business when you took him from Uganda or from Tanzania and you said that our context is not clean or our roads are not good, and you send him to USA where Ayman is, and Ayman is the one to teach him, and he's teaching, is under, I'm using Ayman, there's a certain professor X called Ayman, I'm not saying you, but he's in the setting where there's air conditioning, there's everything sorted out, and the roads are clean. Now, this child went at 5 years. He moves, he comes back at the age of maybe 20, 25. All this time he has been learning and acclimatizing himself within the settings that are sorted. Now, the context, whenever you're bringing out issues, he will not understand you. And that's so I'm not saying we shouldn't send our young people to out. I say they should be exposed, but they should be exposed to convert, to change what is happening. Now, we have some people, for instance, I told you one example, Annette from the Aponye group went to Canada, studied there, but at what age? At a certain age, she was there, but monitored. And so now that's where there's a problem. When you just allow the children without guidance, we always share with our father that if a person is to be told something, rough as it may sound, let this person cry now, when the father and mother or even grandpa is still alive. But some of these decisions, the strategic decisions, must be taken. When you read about Johnson & Johnson's, where they would bring the child, the young child, to be in the board and have a meeting, there is a reason. Most people who have succeeded, they do not take the firstborn or the thirdborn. No, they take the most responsible person in the family. I know a family like Maganjo Grain Millers. It's one of the historical farms in our country, but they're engaging the children all very well. Most of the communications we are doing with them comfortably with the children. So the children, why there's a problem is the postmodernism became so fast, very, very fast. And the social media groups came up, and now the instantification was multiplied. And so the attention span was affected. Now, when the attention span is affected, because of the nitty-gritties of any business, particularly family business, which is a complex entity, there is another option as you're discussing something that in quotes is sounding boring or stressing. Then this young man or woman will just pick a phone and go to WhatsApp and chat. Now, those times when you and me were born, and during those times when we were already running, these WhatsApp, the social medias were not that active. So now, what does it mean? Do we kill the children? No, no. The children must be brought on board, but we have to bend and go to their level. We learn very fast, join them, then connect from there. But we have to engage them because family businesses thrive on generational succession. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm mispronouncing her name, but Madi raises a very good point about, sons-in-law and their role in the family business, because it gets complicated when a father says, well, my daughter is married, but she has a great husband, so therefore I'm going to engage the husband to come into the family business, and then because he's a man, so therefore we're going to work with him, and my daughter will take care of the family while he takes care of the business with me. It gets complicated because then what happens if the husband and wife, as you said, they're not blood related, have an issue, they're having problems in marriage. What happens now to the father? He has to make some choices here. What does he do? Or all the undue pressure on his daughter to stay in a marriage that she is unhappy with just because of the business, because she doesn't want to rock the business from a financial, from a strategic standpoint. A lot of sacrifices that women may do for this. So we get very complicated. But this leads me to a very good point here. And your presentation is exceptional. The comments you made are exceptional. I believe Uganda is in good hands in family business with you, because yes, you bring a lot of wisdom to this here. But what's missing is and it's a challenge, but it's also a call and invitation here. What's missing, I believe, in the research domain, in the field, is more cases from Uganda on family business, on research. So I invite you, Dr. Matama, and I invite everybody to this, to submit cases, publications, articles. To ICSB has two journals, has the Journal of Small Business Management and the Journal of the International Council for Small Business. JISP is a new journal, and it allows for more cases and more creativity and innovation. So I encourage you all to submit to this. We should do this again. This is just the start here. And so we look forward to having more of this, but I want to end it with giving you the floor to share some of your last insights about the future. How does it bode for Uganda, for family businesses, and let's say the youth as well?
Okay. Thank you so much. And you are right when you say that the cases and are not there. But I would like to tell you that sometimes the rigorous efforts that we go through in writing, sometimes you find that you send articles and sometimes there's a problem. Maybe the reviewer is not understanding the context under which you are discussing all this. But it's good that those two journals have been mentioned. But what is the future? The future is we have to own our territory, to own our context, to understand the niche. One of my supervisors called Professor Rutashobia, told me, she's a lady from Tanzania, very respectable professor. She told me that you identify your niche territory and occupy it. And I was happy that even in research, you need to identify these niche territories. Now, again, to the youth, let them own their territory. Let them not just, let us not assume that we were going to have cut and paste from one context to another. No, it's important that we appreciate the fact that we are unique, and as human beings, we are totally ready to handle anything. There are actually some, yesterday I was reading one of the founders of businesses who is based in India, Ratan Tata. He said that intuition is fundamental. Our intuition should not be put low. We should not, as human beings, we need to uplift our intuition and appreciate that humanness is solid. Now, to the youth, to the young ones, that capacity to have a retention span which is small, we should learn something from them. Can we deliver something in the shortest possible time? And perhaps that's how organizations that have brought solutions like Zoom, like WhatsApp, like Google Drives and all that, that's what they did, which is very nice. To me, I think let's put our ears on the ground. Let's understand the context as it manifests, even within the COVID times, even the rough times. It could not be even, or it could be another thing, not COVID, any other thing. Can you be prepared to handle things as a human being, but not to cling on the technologies only? Thank you so much, Professor Ayman.
Dr. Matama, ICSB wants to thank you very much for an exceptional webinar here. I can proudly say that ICSB now have family members in Uganda and
yes,
friends. So we invite you all for MSME Day and on the 25th with the United Nations. I think we're going to send out another email to everybody as well today to a reminder to register. And then also on Saturday, we have another one with the ICSB as well. The actual day is June 27, which is the official UN day. But because some organizations close on a Saturday, they're having it on Thursday. But we'll have both days. We will celebrate both days here. I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank you for an exceptional list of questions here. It has been a privilege for ICSB to have Dr. Matama. I want to ask you all to stay safe, and I look forward to meeting you all soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.